Welcome to New Terra. It's the most successful human colony on Mars, boasting record-breaking profits and a booming industrial sector. But a massive wealth gap is tearing the settlement apart. Down in the lower levels, some colonists struggle with absolute poverty. This is a condition where people lack the income to afford basic survival necessities. In this case, struggling to pay for daily oxygen or standard food rations. Others face relative poverty. They have enough to survive, but their income is significantly lower than the colony's wealthy elites. This stark difference in living standards breeds resentment and creates a socially divisive environment. You don't need to travel to Mars to see this dynamic. This aerial view shows a sharp geographic divide between a developed residential neighborhood and a dense informal settlement right next to it. On Earth, the burden of absolute poverty falls heaviest on the most vulnerable populations. Millions of people, particularly children, lack access to basic nutrition and safe housing, which severely restricts their physical and cognitive development. Unchecked, extreme inequality becomes a massive market failure. When a large portion of a population is too poor to participate in the economy, it destroys overall societal efficiency and drags down economic growth. To fix it, a government has to step in. Back in the Martian colony, the local council's first step to treat the immediate symptoms of poverty is to stop the exploitation of low-paid workers. They do this by introducing a national minimum wage. This graph shows the market for labor. To be effective, the government sets the minimum wage as a legal price floor above the market equilibrium. It is illegal to pay a worker less than this new, higher rate, which immediately raises the living standards of the lowest earners. But there is a serious risk. If this wage floor is set too high, employers will demand fewer workers, while more people will supply their labor, hoping for that higher pay. That gap between supply and demand results in unemployment. For those who lose their jobs, or citizens who are elderly or physically unable to work, the government deploys a second tool, state benefits. These are direct transfer payments, like pensions or unemployment aid, designed to keep people out of absolute poverty. Minimum wages and state benefits provide a vital safety net. However, they treat the immediate symptoms of low income without generating the massive funding required to sustain a colony-wide welfare system. But how exactly does a government afford to pay out all these state benefits and keep essential public services running smoothly? The answer is progressive taxation. It is the primary mechanism a government uses to gather revenue and redistribute income across an economy. Look at the bar charts for these two earners. In a progressive system, the percentage of income paid in tax increases alongside an individual's total earnings. A high-earning director contributes a significantly larger proportion of their salary than a junior mechanic. This heavier tax burden from the highest earners is collected in a central pool of government revenue. From there, it gets redirected downward to the poorest citizens in the form of unemployment checks and state benefits. This system executes two functions at once. It funds the government's daily operations and actively narrows the wealth gap by taking a larger slice from the rich to support the poor. Directly transferring money still isn't enough to permanently eradicate poverty. To build true self-sufficiency, the colony has to attack the root causes of low earning potential. That means taking a large portion of tax revenue and investing it into the free provision of merit goods. These are essential services, primarily education and healthcare, that provide everyone, regardless of their background, an equal opportunity to improve their living standards. When people have access to good schools and hospitals, they develop human capital. A healthy, highly educated workforce naturally becomes much more productive. They can operate more complex machinery, solve harder problems, and command higher wages in the labor market. This diagram maps out the long-term strategy. Government provision of education and health leads to higher human capital, which increases productivity, which ultimately drives sustained economic growth. That growth creates a powerful positive feedback loop. Higher incomes across the board generate more tax revenue without needing to raise tax rates. And that extra revenue can be poured right back into building even better infrastructure and schools. Give it a few decades and you end up with a thriving, stable settlement. Some citizens will still earn more than others, but the absolute bottom floor has been raised to a fair baseline. If you're writing about this on an exam, distinguish between equality and equity. Equality means everyone has the exact same amount of wealth. Equity means fairness, ensuring everyone has access to basic needs and opportunities. Governments strive for equity. Second, when you are defining progressive taxes, you must be precise. Avoid stating that taxes increase as incomes rise, as that is a common trap. You must specify that the percentage or rate of tax increases as income rises. Finally, always evaluate the policies you discuss. If you suggest a national minimum wage to fight poverty, you must also mention its main drawback, the risk that it could cause unemployment if employers cut jobs to save money. Eradicating poverty isn't solved by a single law. A successful economy requires a balanced system, immediate relief to stop the bleeding, progressive taxation to fund the effort, and long-term capacity building to ensure the entire society continues to grow.